I gotta get my head straight. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Sunday, April 11th. Rayen Patnaik and I are here to break down a monstrous Sunday slate on Masters Sunday as well. Shout out to Hideki Matsuyama. Keep that going, buddy, because I have 22% of you, and that feels pretty damn good. I have not played a lot of basketball over the past 2 days, so Rayen Patnaik, you're going to need to carry this one. How are you doing after this weekend?
I'm doing well and exciting. There's going to be an exciting Sunday finish. Maybe Matsuyama runs away with it. We'll see how his Sunday ends up going. But quite a performance he put on yesterday at Augusta. But we got this massive 8-game slate tonight in the NBA. A ton of news again. I feel like this is going to break throughout the day, just like any day in the NBA. But we'll take a first look at things as we break down who stands out and who doesn't stand out really for us and for tonight's lineups.
You guys know what to do to start this stream off. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Subscribing is really, really important. We want to grow. The more we grow, the more we can provide to you guys. So it makes sense. If you're here, subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss what we have going on. We've got multiple shows every day. On Monday through Friday, it's probably like 8 or something along those lines. We're constantly cranking out content. So be around for that. Please hit the like button. Follow Rayen Patnaik and I on Twitter. That'd be great. Follow Jordan Klein as well, the man behind the virtual glass. Good follow. You definitely want to do that. And shout out right now. We're kicking it off this way. Shout out to Cheesy T, premium sub of Awesemo.com, taking down 100K last night in the shoot around. And a couple other Awesemo logos near the top, including the boss man himself at 3. Ryan, you were in 4th. A couple other names that look familiar at the top as well. But Cheesy T taking down 100K last night, and he was active in Slack, correct?
That is correct. Really an euphoric night for him. Awesome to see his excitement in Slack. And just entering with 6 lineups, talk about the best investment of his life made on that Saturday night. And I hope he enjoys it just because that's truly a sensational win for him and an awesome lineup. And everything just panned out the right way for him to squeak it out at the end.
Cheesy T, if you're listening, congratulations. Take 30,000 of that money and immediately put it in a savings account because you're going to have to pay a pretty big tax bill by the end of the year. Don't let that sneak up on you. Sock that away. Pretend like you only won 70. Trust me on this one. Lineup here: Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Talen Horton-Tucker, Royce O'Neal, Enes Kanter, CJ McCollum, Gary Trent, and Furkan Korkmaz. I guess the biggest question mark in that lineup would be Royce O'Neal. He was 3,900, went for 31.5, only 5% owned, but that's not like the type of play that I mind. You kind of have to rotate through a guy like Royce O'Neal. You know he's going to get the minutes every night. He's rarely going to be popular unless a bunch of people for the Jazz are out. So that's why you see the depressed ownership. But minutes rule the roost. And if he's 3,900, he can fall into the stats that matter. And we see in his stat line last night, 2 for 6 from the field, which if you knew that from the beginning, you probably wouldn't think much was going on. But 14 rebounds for Royce O'Neal last night. That was a big one. Still got 3 stocks. Being able to get Royce O'Neal right as a value option, super helpful, but everything else looked great. Nothing crazy in that lineup. People ask so often, everybody's trying to find that 1% owned play. Here are the ownerships for everybody in this lineup: 28, 35, 14, 5, 24, 14, 22, 18. You can be perfectly unique playing relatively popular players, clean across your lineups on certain slates. Like it's not as crazy as it needs to be. You just want to play good plays. And that worked out perfectly for Cheesy T.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of boxes that he checked off. And Royce O'Neal ended up being a great power forward pivot off of much more expensive OG Anunoby. I believe Kevin Love was also power forward eligible last night on DraftKings, and it just panned out in a matchup versus Sacramento. It feels like anyone can get there for you, and Royce O'Neal was that guy. And every single one of those 14 rebounds, I bet Cheesy T is cherishing right now.
And the craziest part of that is 14 rebounds for Royce O'Neal seems like a really high number until you click on Enes Kanter's line to find out that he had 30, 12 offensive rebounds, 18 defensive rebounds, 30 actual rebounds. He went for 24 and 30 last night. That's just an absolutely incredible stat line.
Yeah. And he just has a video game numbers, 2K number performance from Enes Kanter last night, who was a great pivot off of Boucher and Andre Drummond. And the opportunity cost with those three, it was a really fun center slate because you could mix and match with all three of those centers. And you weren't really missing out on much. You were going to miss out on an expensive Gobert and an Embiid on a back-to-back coming off an injury and a matchup where he didn't play the fourth quarter, I believe. So that worked out really well for going to the mid-tier center options who were really good in terms of Drummond and Boucher. Boucher was not good. Drummond and Kanter were pretty solid, but Kanter put on a Enes Kanter-esque performance. You expect him to dominate the boards. One of the really good rebounders in the league. And just a terrible defender, but he's improved his defense over the time. But an awesome performance in terms of stat line last night.
Yeah, when you're playing the Pistons and some of your centers are Isaiah Stewart, not that I don't like Isaiah Stewart, but a young guy, or maybe Jahlil Okafor sneaking onto the floor. Enes Kanter's defense, not quite as important in a matchup against the Pistons, so that helps out a bit. But yeah, 30 rebounds last night, truly, truly nuts. Shout out to everybody that had a good night. I see, green. Anytime you've got a green number in the profit column in a 150 max, you're probably pretty happy about the way that tournament went. So kudos to Cheesy T. Kudos to you. Kudos to the boss man, Alex Baker, as well. It's always nice to see the green. All right, 8 games. We got 53 more minutes to go before we're through this stuff. So what do you say we dive in?
Let's do it.
All righty, first game up. The New Orleans Pelicans at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs are somewhere around 6.5-point dogs, 227 total in this game. And we've got some news to speak of. I don't know the status of Kevin Love right now. I assume he doesn't play on the back-to-back, but I don't think that we've seen anything that said he is officially out. But I'm not expecting Kevin Love. I don't know what you are. We have no Jared Allen still, no Larry Nance. Lonzo Ball out for the Pelicans. Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Josh Hart also out for the Pelicans. So let's start just with that piece of news for Kevin Love. Do you think he plays on the back-to-back?
So it's going to be tough. This Cleveland team got absolutely waxed last night thanks to Gary Trent's career performance of, I believe, about 44. Was that really, really good last night from the field. But how many minutes did he end up playing last night? I think he cracked like 23 minutes, I believe. So I'm truly 50-50 if Kevin Love plays or doesn't play. I do think those minutes are going to be much higher if the game were close, but they just got absolutely their doors blown off. Yeah. I think it's a 50-50 split, and that him being out will open up a lot of things for guys like Dean Wade and Hartenstein to get even more minutes than they already do.
Shout out to one Cheesy T in chat right now with the super chat. I appreciate it. It's a life-changing win for me, guys. Thanks for all the knowledge and effort you guys do. Been around since Josh had his own channel. That's exciting. It makes me feel even better. I'm even happier now that you won that 100K for the shout out. Said, can't thank you enough. Hope to invest in myself in streaming and content creation, which is awesome. Maybe we'll see you in the future. Said, love you guys. Cheesy T, congrats, man.
Congratulations. An absolutely epic night for you. Really happy for you. Awesome.
Yeah, it must have been a good night, man. Must have been a good night. Go get a nice bottle of bubbly. Pop that bad boy for today or tomorrow. Gotta love it. All right, so let's touch on New Orleans now. We know that we don't have Lonzo. We know Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker are just out. 9,700 on FanDuel, 9,400 on DK. How you feeling about Point Zion?
Point Zion. How could you not have some interest in Point Zion? The guy's been an absolute beast. Yeah. I believe he now is shooting. Most of his points he's averaging the most points in the paint this season than Shaq's 2001-2002 season, I believe now. It's gone to that point. And I've been just saying, ride Zion until he's north of 10K. And I'm going to continue to just play Zion. He's been super consistent, picking up more peripherals as we go. And I still think he deserves a 5-figure price tag a lot sooner than later. 9,700 on FanDuel, $9,400 on DraftKings. I really have a ton of interest in Zion. And no one on Cleveland's really slowing down Zion. Zion in a tough matchup against Philly just was absolutely sensational. He went for 65 FanDuel points. And you love the shot attempts. When the guy's shooting those high efficient shot attempts and getting that many shot attempts up, you're going to have a ton of interest in Zion Williamson today.
He's I'm really excited to see what the rest of his future looks like. I pray that he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because he is going to be a truly special offensive player in a mold that we haven't really seen. He's a very different style of basketball player. 1.48 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days. Do you have your eye on anything else from New Orleans?
Other guys in New Orleans, sure, Brandon Ingram can have an upside game, but man, this team is just deferring to Zion, and rightfully so. The nice thing about Brandon Ingram, he came back last time, put up 21 shot attempts. I expect him to shoot better from 5 to 21, and he was very rusty. So I think coming off an injury like that, you could expect some rust. But I think going to Zion, going to Brandon Ingram when those minutes are that high on FanDuel where you have to roster two, I think makes for a fine option.
James Johnson, Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe. We've seen some of these. I mean, James Johnson is in the 5Ks now. That seems like a pretty tough sell. Eric Bledsoe has been truly dreadful at fantasy this entire season, really, no matter who is in or out. Is there anything else there for New Orleans?
Yeah, I think 21 minutes of Kira Lewis is not terrible in a matchup versus Cleveland. It would be a tournament only play. It doesn't help that Isaiah Thomas is in the picture and get minutes, unfortunately, but Kira Lewis in tournament option. There's an option. There's a chance this game New Orleans blows out Cleveland, and Kira Lewis, I would believe he would get some blowout run in this matchup. But you never know what Stan Van Gundy might do. It's just a tournament option. That price tag is kind of favorable for a guy to potentially get 30 fantasy points with those minutes.
Now, on the Cleveland side, obviously a lot hangs on whether or not Kevin Love plays. That could potentially open up more for Isaiah Hartenstein, Taurean Prince, Lamar Stevens, Dean Wade, although Dean Wade's probably at a bit of a cap now. I mean, some of these prices, at least on FanDuel, are insane. Taurean Prince is $6,400. That's just an absolutely ludicrous price tag. Isaiah Hartenstein at $5,600 to me is also still quite a bit too high. What do you want to do with Cleveland? Use whatever assumption you would like.
So if Kevin Love were to play, I'll have some interest in him. I think those minutes are creeping up to the high 20s. And the high 20s of Kevin Love minutes in this matchup, he could put up 40 fantasy points. We saw it the other night against Oklahoma City. In 23 minutes, he put up 40 fantasy points. And Kevin Love, obviously, he's well past his Minnesota days of just being a fantasy monster, but there's an upside even if he were to get 28 minutes. So I'll have interest in Kevin Love if he were to play. And if he doesn't play, I think going to Hartenstein makes a lot of sense. And Wade, the savings off of Wade to Hartenstein are interesting, but I just think Hartenstein, you're just going to have to project him for a bit, like at least 5-6 more fantasy points in the situation. If no Love were to play, and it would favor him. On FanDuel, you could find a way to roster 2 or 3 of these guys, and you can mix and match even if all 3 of those guys are in.
It's just this Cleveland team is really bad. And their offense is so bad that it really makes them kind of like a bad DFS play clear across the board. They're the worst offense in basketball, and it's really not even particularly close, which probably doesn't feel all that great when you've invested in 2 offensive first guards in some of your more recent picks. Okoro, obviously, sort of the opposite of that. Not a great time to be a Cleveland fan. Although, you had some decent times in the recent past. So,
and it's annoying that Dellavedova is playing like a handful of minutes that you can't really have that much interest in the guards that much, just because Dellavedova, how many minutes did he play last night? He played 16 and 21 the last 2 games.
Yeah.
You'd love to see those minutes just go to Garland and Sexton a bit more and like have those guys get more minutes. And I do think one of these guards can be good in this matchup. Maybe we go to Sexton because Garland came off a decent game last night, just avoiding the recency bias. But it's tough to have a ton of confidence in these Cleveland guards.
Anything else for this game? Guess not. Oh, man. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that oh, there we go. Welcome back. Thought I was hosting the show on my own for the rest of it. Anything else for this game? That was the question that threw it all in the garbage.
Zion and everyone else for this game.
Sounds good. Let's move it on to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Orlando Magic. Magic 8.5-point dogs at home against the Bucks. Bucks sat everybody on Friday. which was funny. Some of those guys were still in last I saw. And then when we got closer to lock, I was away from the computer for most of the day. And I saw that everybody was out, which I found pretty funny. Today, everybody's back except the main man, Giannis Antetokounmpo. So we've got Chris Middleton, 7,800 on FanDuel, 8K on DraftKings. Drew Holiday, 8,700 on FanDuel, 8,200 on DraftKings. I'm going to assume that they are your two favorite plays coming from Milwaukee, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I just am just like donating every time Chris Middleton has been on the slate for the last week, just because he's just not been able to get there. I'm going to donate yet again. I'm hoping Chris Middleton puts on finally an upside performance. It feels like the Ben Simmons situation without Embiid. I just am getting bit by one of these plays. And look, Chris Middleton is a very, very good basketball player, one of the best players in the league. He took 27 shot attempts against Dallas. He went 6 of 27. He's a much, much better shooter than that. Yeah. There's a chance Chris Middleton, he should be putting up mid-40s fantasy points without Giannis on the floor. And I'm going to go to Giannis and Drew yet again. I just think these guys are going to carry the team, and they make for great options on both sides. It's tough for me not to have a significant amount of interest in both of them today.
Yeah, last 30 days, Chris Middleton, 1 FanDuel point per minute on the dot, which is just comical. I've got him at 1.2 for today, which makes him a fantastic play, especially at that 8K price tag on DK. Bobby Portis, 5,800 on FanDuel, 6,300 on DraftKings, going straight back that way.
So I'll have interest in Portis if he starts. So there's a game against Sacramento. He didn't start, and he only played 20 minutes. And since then, he has started all 3 games, and even started against Charlotte. The minutes in the games that he has started have gone 28, 35, and 25. 25, they were getting blown out. He didn't come in to close the game. But there's a significant minutes difference when he starts and he doesn't start. So keep an eye on that situation on what Budenholzer does. I would expect Bobby Portis to start. It wouldn't shock me if he doesn't. And I believe Connaughton was the guy who started against Sacramento. I'll have a lot more interest in Bobby Portis if he were to start, because 8 minutes of Bobby Portis is a big difference when he starts and doesn't start.
Yeah, and you can kind of do whatever you want if you're Milwaukee here, because oddly enough, the Orlando Magic team might actually be worse than the Cleveland Cavaliers at this point. Are you getting to anybody else from Milwaukee? DiVincenzo, Lopez, Connaughton? I don't think there's anybody else that's truly viable.
There's a chance that one of these guys can be good. I don't have the utmost confidence. They're now getting priced appropriately. Brook Lopez is just one of those guys who can get an upside just in blocks and threes on both sides, really. So Lopez is a guy who I've been consistently been over the field with this Giannis situation when Giannis has been out since he played against Portland. So I'll target Portis, and I'll target Lopez, and I like Lopez even more if Portis doesn't start.
Okay. On the Orlando side, well, they definitely play today. They are in a game. Those are sort of the only things that I could say about the Orlando Magic. Chuma Okeke questionable, Mo Bamba questionable, Kareem Mane questionable. I wouldn't roster a single player from Orlando on FanDuel. I think they are slightly more interesting at a little bit better price tags on DK, like $5,700 Wendell Carter or $5,100 Cole Anthony. But I don't see something that I can say they would be a priority or even like an average play from Orlando. Are you seeing anything different?
Nah, they all look like ugly plays on the slate today. In tournaments, if you want to target an upside game, Terrence Ross is probably the only guy who I feel confident could find a way to get to 40 fantasy points. But that's like worst case scenario in terms of going to a Magic player. He's the only guy who I'd have any sort of interest in is probably Terrence Ross.
Yeah, that's all I got here. I can't begin to fake it. This team is truly dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, this team will be interesting to see how the rebuilding process works. Obviously, Fultz and Jonathan Isaac, who are very, I think, promising young players. Are they superstar, elite, talented players? No. Maybe Isaac had potential to get there, but these injuries have been really devastating. And Carter just can't stay healthy. And Carter Jr., I always thought was a very talented player when he came out of Duke, and it just couldn't find a way to stay on the court. It'll be interesting to see what they do with this draft pick and see what ends up happening, who they get.
The NBA draft lottery day is going to be one of the most fun days of my year. I cannot wait to see how it shakes out. The pick protections on some of these picks and who gets picks if they fall in certain ranges. Like as of right now, the two teams that are expected to pick at the top would be Minnesota and Houston. Both of those teams have protected picks based on top 3 for Minnesota, top 4 for Houston. So if they would happen to slip down and fall, they can go from potentially looking at a top 5 pick to not getting that pick. The swings on those top 2 guys are going to be insane, and I cannot wait to see it. Right now, Orlando projected on Tankathon for the 4th pick, which in theory would be Jalen Green, certainly a guy that would fit into this team pretty well. Then again, when you're this bad, you can draft anyone you would like. I'm sure they'll just draft a center because that's the only thing they know how to do.
Yeah, so Minnesota needs to make sure they're smart about tanking and they don't fall out of that top 3 protected pick. Yeah. We're playing well. They almost won the game against Boston. The game went to overtime. And we'll see what ends up happening. Shout out to Alex Rodriguez for purchasing the Timberwolves last night.
I saw that.
We'll see how aggressive he is and trying to bring back this Timberwolves team to relevance.
By the way, Minnesota is more likely to give up the pick than to keep it.
Yeah, I do think there's a good chance that can happen. And then all of a sudden, Golden State has another pick. Could be a really good player. And now what do they do with that pick? Do they try to trade it and try to get another stud on their team? And who really fits with Golden State now as these guys have gotten older? It'll be really interesting in the coming months, especially in the offseason. And to see, there's not that notable free agents in this class, but the draft classes, the draft and some trades are definitely going to happen this offseason.
Yeah. So if Minnesota finishes with the worst record, they would have a 60% chance of finishing 4th or 5th, which would push the pick out to so the Warriors have a 60% chance of picking 4th or 5th. The Minnesota Timberwolves would have a 40% chance of keeping their pick with either the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd selection. And then the same sort of thing happens for Houston, only it's top 4, Oklahoma City with a 48% chance of taking the Houston pick at 5 or 6.
Oh, it goes to OKC?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That shouldn't be too surprising. Literally every pick in the NBA goes to Oklahoma City under the right circumstances.
This must have been from the Westbrook and Paul trade.
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a terrible trade.
It's all ridiculous. Okay, moving it on. San Antonio Spurs, Dallas Mavericks, battle for Texas. Spurs are 6-point dogs in Dallas. And best I can tell, this one should be relatively normal, at least from a news perspective. We've got Maxi Kleber on the Dallas side, questionable. Redick still out. Willie Cauley-Stein is now probable. We'll see if that puts him back into the rotation. Gorgie Jang, Trey Lyles still out for the Spurs. And on the San Antonio side, I kind of feel the exact same way I did about Orlando. It's just that most of these guys are actual functional NBA rotational players. But to me, nothing stands out from San Antonio. The minutes are a little unpredictable. They're all sort of the same guy at a different position. I don't see anybody that immediately stands out. Do you?
On San Antonio side, no. I think maybe Jakob Poeltl at $6,200. Tough to go there. I just like his minutes. He played 36 minutes last time. Him and DeRozan, I feel the most confident in minutes, and just because of they have quite a bit of guards and wing players that they can mix and match. And seems like DeRozan and Poeltl have gotten the most trust from Pop. So those would be my 2 favorite Spurs players to target. Obviously, DeJounte Murray could get an upside, but Derek White seems too expensive on both sides to me right now. That's really about it for the Spurs. Lonnie Walker's back in the mix. He's stealing a few minutes, and that's how I feel about the Spurs team. Not much confidence. Sure, one guy can be good. I don't have confidence in picking which one, though. It's really tough to even go there. No one stands out as spectacular plays.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe this. You're not at all surprised that the Spurs could have somebody go to 8x, 9x on their salary, but it could legitimately be 9 separate people. And I think the range of outcomes for all of them are all comparable. If you tell me that Derek White is the guy that provides value, it's okay, but at his price tag, it's really difficult to get to over similarly priced guys across the slate. And that's where it gets pretty tricky.
And the Spurs team, they can all be good, but not great. And in tournaments, you need everyone to be great in your lineup. And in terms of basketball purposes, they can be fine. But in DFS aspects, you need your players to be great. And no one can I pinpoint has the real pathway of being great today.
On the Dallas side, to me, this one's pretty cut and dry. Maxi questionable will open or could open up at least a little bit of more interesting opportunities, potentially for someone like Nicola Melli. But right now it's 10-2 on FanDuel, which I really like. 11K on DraftKings. Clearly, Luka Doncic very much in play. Kristaps Porzingis, 8,500 on FanDuel, 8,900 on DK. To me, they're really the only two guys you would get any sort of volume on.
Yeah, I think Luka is now a little too cheap on FanDuel. I know he hasn't been fun for a better part of 2 weeks. We haven't seen north of 60 fantasy points since a matchup against Portland on March 19th. And at that price tag, in an 8-game slate, you really want him to get north of 60. Can he put on a show versus San Antonio? Yeah, definitely. It's Luka Doncic, but is there something that he's going through? Are they deferring the offense more to Porzingis? And I just need to take a look into more of that and why these numbers have been down of late. It's been disappointing in terms of fantasy purposes. As that prices come down, I'll be willing to get over the field on a guy like Doncic who has serious upside, and maybe the public is shying away from that just because Doncic in this game environment could be really good, and it could be the highest scoring player on the slate. And whenever that can happen, you're going to want him in your lineup.
Trying to take a look to see how he's been over the past 2 weeks. I should be able to refresh this. So Luka Doncic over the past 2 weeks, still it sounds bad. 1.41 FanDuel points per minute over that time. That is the 11th highest rate in the league. However, one of the guys that have a higher rate than that is 121 minutes worth of JaVale McGee. So there is that. Look, there's basically never a scenario when you know that Luka Doncic can play starter minutes that he's not available. Like, you don't roster him for that slate. It's just, you always are able to play the highest upside plays, and Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis are those two plays.
Oh, for sure. And both have upside of 50 fantasy points. And for some reason, if you're a land on two, obviously it's not by means of in terms of correlation doesn't help. There's an upside where both can get north of 50, mid 50 fantasy points. They're that good about fantasy players when they're going.
Anything else for this game?
No, it's a sneaky tournament game. There's a pathway for a handful of these guys to be really good, but it's just Luka and Porzingis really are the two plays I would try to prioritize. It's just tough on the San Antonio side of things to have real confidence on who's going to be really good.
All right, got to talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes things, including our schedule for the rest of today. So coming up after this, not immediately after, but at noon Eastern, MLB Live Before Lock, EMAC and Max taking you up to the 1 p.m. lock for today's MLB slate. Then we're getting back into the basketball swing of things. NBA Deeper Dive at 5 with EMAC and Terry. So EMAC pulling double duty, MLB and NBA. The ultimate grinder. 6 p.m. Eastern time, NBA Live Before Lock, Jason Floyd and Eric Lindquist breaking it all down and taking you up to lock at 7 p.m. Make sure you're tuning in there because we do have a lot of questionable guys. So that 5 to 7 window of Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock going to be very important for the NBA today. Just can't avoid it. No giveaways or anything, but we do still have the active promo Dustin if you wanted to get into our PGA content, and it expires today. If you don't get in on it now, you're not going to be getting in on it. And obviously you would have missed the Masters at this point, but 2 more months through basically the meat of the PGA schedule, you'll get the PGA Championship, so you will get access to another major. It's BOGO. You get buy 1 month, get another month free. So 2 months for the price of one, $29.95. That covers projections, ownership, lineup builder, top golfers tool, unofficial golf rankings from Awesemo himself. We've got a ton of PGA content now. If you were looking to dip your toe in the water, I think now is the perfect time to do it. This is going to be, I would imagine this will be the best golf deal we will run for a calendar year. 2 months for the price of one. And you're covering what's going to be 8 tournaments and 8 of the best tournaments you'll find. Can't beat it.
Yeah. And another major will be covered in those 2 months as well. And these major tournaments, these golf prize pools are through the roof. There are lots and lots of money on the table to win. And also our golf team has been putting out tons of new tools and data. We just released a new unofficial rankings, which were really fun to pick around building Masters lineups. Obviously, we have top golfers tool, projections, ownership projections, tons of tools for putting you in the right path to be successful building your DFS lineups.
Yeah, I mean, the calendar is loaded. RBC next week, Zurich Classic, Valspar, Wells Fargo in my state of North Carolina, Byron Nelson. Then you get the PGA Championship, It's at Kiowa. That's fun. Charles Schwab, you get the Memorial. We would be leading you up. You'd have 8 straight weeks of this, and then we would be pulling you back in because the U.S. Open is in June, and that's when you're going to want to get back to it. So use that promo code. Again, the promo code is Dustin, and you can see Nightbot just dropped the link into chat. What a good Nightbot. Indiana Pacers at the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies 2.5-point favorites here. 230.5 total. That's the biggest total on the slate today. Nope, I'm reading the Chicago Bulls and the Minnesota Timberwolves. 228 total for the Pacers and Grizzlies. Second biggest total on the slate. I was close. And that, close doesn't just always count in horseshoes and hand grenades. It also counts in reading off NBA game totals. For Indiana, Miles Turner still out. Breaks my heart. Love that dude. Which allows Domantas Sabonis to play a little bit more at center, which should be a benefit to him. 9,100 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DraftKings. I'm in for Sabonis. I'm in for $6,600 Malcolm Brogdon. $7,900 Karis LeVert feels a little overpriced, but you still feel like you need to get him because if he gets hot, it's just going to keep going and going and going. What are you looking at for Indiana?
Gotta love Sabonis. With no Turner, expecting more center minutes from him, obviously. Was disappointing from shooting wise from the field. I like that he got up north of 10 shot attempts coming off an injury. I really think Sabonis is one of those standout plays on the slate. The guy could put up a pretty big upside in terms of north of 50 fantasy points. In a matchup against Memphis, I really think he could dominate, especially on FanDuel, where you have to roster 2 power forwards. Sabonis stands out. I really like Sabonis, going to Sabonis at that price tag on both sides, honestly. And other guys on this Indiana team, Malcolm Brogdon just has not been good since the Karis LeVert insertion to the starting lineup. He has an upside in him, and maybe it's Brogdon who slowly starts to get things going. The shot attempts are there. He's gone 4 of 14, 2 of 12 the last 2 games respectively, and I think he could turn things around. He's a much better shooter than that, and I think at that price tag, we're buying low on Brogdon on both sides, coming in at 6,600 on both sides. I think Sabonis.
Couldn't agree more. For the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that I just can't seem to find a feel for. Ja Morant grades out decently for me every day, and it's always just a complete letdown. 0.96 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days, and yet still I'm a little tiny bit interested for 7K on both sides. Joval, probably my favorite play in this game, 7,500 on FanDuel, 7,400 on DraftKings, and should absolutely eat Domantas Sabonis on the offensive end of the ball. Maybe Dylan Brooks, maybe slow-mo on DK. I can go either direction. Are you seeing anything for the Grizzlies?
I think Ja Morant to be much better. I think targeting Ja Morant is probably my favorite Grizzlies player.
I want so much more out of him. It's been a weird season for him. I don't know, at some point in time, I just need to remember that he's 21 and still the lead point guard on a solid team, and maybe not overreact to his DFS stats as much, but sketching me out a little bit. I don't know. I thought I would like a little bit more of Memphis, but just the way that they're set up right now, even with a couple guys out, even knowing that we don't have DeAnthony Melton and Justice Winslow out for a little bit, it just doesn't seem like it's going to matter all that much. So Morant, I'm with you. You got to get to Morant, but he's been a bit of a letdown as of late. Anything else in Indiana and Memphis?
No, I think I prefer the Indiana side of things than the Memphis side of things in this matchup.
Well, I'd imagine we're going to have something to talk about here. Chicago Bulls at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Bulls are 4.5-point favorites in Minnesota, 230.5 total, the biggest on the slate. Clearly, we know that Minnesota's defense isn't very good. Chicago, pretty much the same sort of scenario. There's just a lot of really legitimate GPP upside in this game, and it can come from a lot of different places, but this is sort of like the opposite of the Spurs in that someone is going to smash in this game just by default. It just might be the ugliest plays of the day. Zach LaVine, still, to me, wildly underpriced on FanDuel at 8,300. I would like to go there. We see Nikola Vucevic, 9,600 on FanDuel, 9,100 on DraftKings. To me, they are the clear 2 best options. But you can go to Satoransky, Kobe White, Thad Young, Patrick Williams. There are paths to quite a few other guys. And against Minnesota, it really makes it a little bit more appealing to have a couple Bulls. How do you feel about Chicago?
Yeah, I think having a couple Bulls make a ton of sense. And obviously, Levine and Vooch could both put up a ceiling performance against Minnesota. I like targeting those two guys. And then a third Timberwolf is tough. Now that all of a sudden Kobe White's playing a sprinkled a few more minutes here is kind of ruling Satoransky out of play. Satoransky's priced appropriately. Thad Young at 6K. I don't like, I've not been really on Thad Young since Vooch has joined the Bulls. Levine obviously had a great performance, but I think my favorite Bulls player to target in all things put together is probably Vooch against a Cat defense.
Yeah, the offense, this is a hell of an offensive center matchup.
Yeah.
It was a pretty high end, and their defense is offensive, generally speaking. Do you prefer Vooch or Towns in this matchup? Obviously, price difference is pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, raw points straight up, it's tough not to go to Towns. He's been really aggressive of late, and the coach is just trying to feed him the ball. I'm still going to prefer Karl Anthony Towns. I just think he has a massive ceiling, and to take advantage in this matchup, there's a significant amount of savings. It's a big enough slate where you can do a lot with that money.
Yeah, but
we'll see what ends up happening.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Minnesota side of this game. For the Wolves, we have Cat at 11K, Towns at 10.8. Anthony Edwards, the other main starter here, 7,600 on FanDuel, 7,600 on DraftKings. I'm very much in for both of those guys. Jayden McDaniels plays a ton of minutes right now, 4,800 and 4,600 on FanDuel and DK respectively. I'm not all that interested in D'Angelo Russell, but maybe you'll tell me something a little bit different. How are you feeling about the Minnesota Timberwolves here?
So D'Angelo Russell played 29 minutes last time out against Ball, 10 of 18. Now, if he went 24, 29 minutes and as those minutes increase, could he play north of 30 minutes? I'll have interest of D'Angelo Russell if he's going to play north of 30 minutes. Yeah. The price tag's a little too cheap if he's going to play north of 30 minutes. So I don't mind D'Angelo Russell. Okay. He's gonna steal away from obviously Cat's upside, but Russell is one of those players who can get hot from the field and get going.
I might be misrepresenting him a little bit. I like the $6,500 price tag on DraftKings. To me, that's more feasible. 7,100 on FanDuel. You need him to also play well. Like there's limited upside in his minutes. Like to me, there's no chance that he's going to get to 36 where you can withstand a little bit of wiggle room. So you actually need him to have an outlier fantasy point per minute performance at the minute level he can have. For 6,500 on DK, I think he's a little bit more open, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier to find someone in that $7,100 range that who's there? Like, would you rather have on FanDuel, would you rather have Colin Sexton or D'Angelo Russell? Sexton is $300 more expensive.
Yeah, Colin Sexton, you feel confident in him to at least play mid-30s minutes and chuck maybe 10 more bad shot attempts than Russell. So Colin Sexton, probably my preferred option.
7K Ja Morant or D'Angelo Russell?
Ja Morant, yeah.
Okay. Kind of pinches him out of there. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking about for the rest of Minnesota?
Jayden McDaniels of Minnesota played 44 minutes last time. Obviously, the game went to overtime. But if he's going to play that many minutes, mid 30 minutes plus, you're going to have interest in him in this matchup. He's turning out to be a much better player than I expected. Obviously, he's playing on a bad team, but 4,800. He's shown an upside in games past before. 4,600 on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel as a spend down power forward option, it makes some sense taking some tournament options on McDaniels of Minnesota.
Okay. He's a guy that I've been rostering aggressively as of late. He's not a good fantasy performer. I mean, he's like a 0.7 guy, and those guys are always scary because you're going to go 18, 18, 18, 48 to get it to work. But that is generally, when we're talking about this, that's what we're looking to do in a GPP. I don't really care if he goes 0, 0, 0 in most of those days because I want to be there on the day that he does go for 40. That'll print some money for me. Anything else you want to do in Minnesota and Chicago?
No, it's a really good fantasy environment. There's a good chance of organically you'll get a game stack where you'll get 4 guys from this game, and I won't mind it just because of the environment that they're going to be presented in.
It's about that time to give a shout out to the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be No House Advantage. No House Advantage, doing it a little bit different. We're not all that worried about fantasy points. That's old hat. We don't need to talk about that stuff. We're worried about player props here. And today you can get into the $4,500 slam dunk. That's $2K to first And instead of, again, like having to say, I hope this guy goes for 40, you're just picking player props. So the first thing you can do is go and look at someone like Zion Williamson for today. How are you feeling about 27.5 points for Point Zion?
Points for Point Zion. You know what I'm using? I'm using Alex's NBA player props tool. And Alex has the over. And I'm going to take the over on that.
So you mentioned Alex's player props tool. What we have on the website for free, you don't have to pay a cent. We have Alex's projections projected out to all of the player props for No House Advantage. So you can find out exactly how Alex feels about every single prop that's available at No House Advantage. But it doesn't stop there. We also provide a No House Advantage optimal lineups. We can tell you exactly how to even put it in, because the construction of your lineup is very important. You don't just pick props and hope you win. You rank them on a confidence interval. So your favorite prop is worth 10 points, your second favorite, 9, then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, all the way down to 1 point. So it's really important that you get your highest level props correct. You'll need those points in order to win. And we provide all of that information for free on the website. You can sign up at No House Advantage, use the promo code Awesemo, get a $20 first match deposit bonus. So that's free money right out of the gate. You make a deposit, you get free money, and you have free tools to play these slates. You cannot beat that. It should be a really great opportunity for you to build your bankroll. It should be a great opportunity for you to get your feet wet in the DFS industry, build yourself up a little bit more. It should be a bit softer of competition as well. Beat your friends, not the house. You can win big with player props at No House Advantage. Whew. Well, we got 3 more to go. The Toronto Raptors are at the New York Knicks. Knicks, 1.5 point favorites against Toronto. If I told you that the New York Knicks were 1.5 point favorites against the Toronto Raptors on April 11th, but I told you this 6 months ago, what would you assume happened to Toronto?
I mean, the whole team tore their ACL. It's just like, what a disappointing season. Obviously, there is a good 3-week to a month stretch where they just haven't played with their normal starting 5 just because of COVID, injuries, now suspensions. So it's been a disappointing Toronto season. I don't know how far out they are from the play-in game, but once VanVleet comes back and Lowry comes back, they could finish this season out strong and potentially crack the play-in game.
So for Toronto today, Kyle Lowry, questionable. Fred VanVleet is out. Pascal Siakam is in. And Khem Birch, new center for the Raptors, is probable to play. If Kyle Lowry is playing, he is $6,300 on FanDuel today, $7,300 on DraftKings. Obviously, Pascal Siakam's price is still up. Gary Trent coming off of an absolutely monster performance. OG Anunoby still priced up. But to me, Kyle Lowry on FanDuel, if he is in, is one of the best plays of the day.
Oh, yeah. It's tough not to love Kyle Lowry. Hopefully there's no minutes limit or anything, but $6,300 Kyle Lowry, geez, that is way too cheap for him. $7,300 on DraftKings. You got to love Kyle Lowry in this spot. I know it's the Knicks. It's not been favorable to target teams against them this year, but in DFS, there's a salary aspect to things. And Kyle Lowry, there's definitely a clear pathway of being an exceptional play today.
Are you interested in anything else from Toronto? I mean, this is generally a pretty terrible DFS game. The Knicks defense is above average. They're the slowest team in the league. Can you find value in Siakam, Trent, Anunoby, Boucher? Or are these guys just kind of priced appropriately now?
Yeah, they're priced appropriately / too high with Lowry potentially entering the picture right now. So it'd be tough to have interest in another Raptor just because of the way things have panned out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, it's in terms of recency bias, I wouldn't be looking to roster Gary Trent Jr. today. He had a historic game, and I think Kyle Lowry, if you were to play, will just take away from Gary Trent's upside.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty tough sell to get to Trent. More appealing on DraftKings at 5,800, but 6,200 on DK. You need him to have that historic game once again. Then on the Knicks side, I mean, this one should be pretty easy. Play Julius Randle if you want. 9,500 and 9,700. He does literally everything for the Knicks. Here's a fact for you. Julius Randle over the past 30 days, 1.22 FanDuel points per minute for the Knicks. The next highest number of anybody that I have projected to play, so the other 9 guys in the rotation, 0.95 for Elfrid Payton. So no one is even within 0.2 per minute to Julius Randle. Everybody else is is under 1 or well under 1 fantasy point per minute. It makes it tough. So play some Randall, play a little bit of RJ Barrett. And to me, I'm ignoring mostly the rest of this.
Yeah, Randall's a great option on both sides. Sorry, I'll not say great. He's a good option on both sides.
Yeah.
And I think RJ Barrett, I think on FanDuel, where it's a roster 2 small forwards, makes for an okay option. And now I've been taking some chances on Nerlens Noel because there was a stretch when Mitchell Robinson was injured. He played mid 36 minutes. It was riding him. And I was just hoping that he was going to do that out of the blue. He hasn't. And Taj Gibson played more minutes than him the other night. So Nerlens Noel is a great tournament option, in my opinion, because there is a chance he could play 33 minutes tonight and be really good.
Yeah, when Mitchell Robinson went out for that first injury, there were a couple of games where Nerlens Noel played like 41 minutes in regulation. That has not happened since then. I don't know. Maybe somebody was finally like, hey, Tibbs, can you not try to kill everybody? Like you don't.
They're not going to have any centers. They had to sign John Henson, not of all people.
Oh, man. Unreal. John Henson, one of the key members of the Andre Drummond to Cleveland trade. And I use the term key incredibly loosely. Anything else in Knicks Raptors?
Him and Brandon Knight were not in the league. And like, I don't know if Detroit even got a pick from it. Maybe they got a second round pick.
It was a fake second rounder.
Oh yeah. They just had to like get rid of him. They're like, give us like your trash. We'll try to make something out of it. And they couldn't do anything.
It's nuts. It's truly nuts. I'm anxious to see what Andre Drummond gets on his next deal.
Oh, it's going to be maybe the Montrezl Harrell type of signing.
Yeah, I could see it, something in that like 10 to 12 range.
Yeah.
He's not going to get years. He could get dollars. He's the type of guy that you want minimally.
Yeah. Like a 1 year or 2 year deal.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right.
I don't know where he even fits.
Go ahead. Yeah, I don't know. Now I just want to look at teams. So let me think about this. We've got some time. It's 10:47. We have 2 games to go. I just want to look at the list of teams and think to myself, who could be the most likely scenario that would want to sign him? I think he could be an interesting fit in Washington, depending on how you feel about Thomas Bryant's status coming back off the knee injury. Like they certainly need a center, I guess.
Westbrook's not going to let that happen. Westbrook wants all those rebounds. He's going to fight for him.
Charlotte, perhaps. I mean, they're going to probably be in the mix for a center in some way. There's not much else that like makes a ton of sense. Nothing. Sacramento, maybe if Rashawn Holmes ends up leaving because he is a free agent. So if he's not going to be there, they're going to need to replace him with someone. I don't think that the answer there is going to be Marvin Bagley. There's not many other options. So he might get pinched a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what ends up happening with him. There's just so many better centers than him in the league.
Yeah, the problem for him really is that oddly, like there doesn't appear to be a market for starting centers. There aren't that many teams that would be looking for him. And in a situation like that, you don't have as much leverage to try to get a bigger deal.
Yep. He got his one big payday in Detroit, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think he's plenty happy with the amount of money he's made.
All right. Sure. Yeah.
Let's close this bad boy out. Former team for Andre Drummond, the Detroit Pistons taking on the LA Clippers. 10.5 point favorites for the Clips in Los Angeles, 219 total. Oh, God, this Detroit team is just truly, truly aggravating. So Jeremy Grant, questionable. That is not at all how you spell his name, but it doesn't matter. I spelled it wrong. Anyway, Killian Hayes, doubtful, I think. Wayne Ellington, probable. Rodney Magruder, questionable. On the LA side, Beverly out, Leonard out, Ibaka out, Rondo, questionable. Can you play anybody from Detroit?
Anybody from Detroit? The only guy I would take my chances on is Sadiq Bey, is just because he seems like the guy to have the most consistent minutes in terms of consistent playing at least 25 minutes and could get an upside in banging out some 3-pointers. But everyone else, you're honestly playing roulette. It's just so hard to pinpoint who's getting those minutes. Is it Jackson? Is it Corey Joseph? Is it Dennis Smith Jr.? Is it Killian Hayes? It's so tough to even have confidence in them. And thankfully, yesterday, Furkan Korkmaz opened up because I had way too much Dennis Smith Jr. Heading into the lock. And I was like, there's got to be some news that has to open up so I can hop off of him. That worked out, but they're just all so bad in the backcourt. And I just don't know. it's so hard to have confidence on who's going to be good.
And they're playing 15 guys a game, basically. I only like one play here. $4,500 on FanDuel, Josh Jackson.
Yeah, I think that's like, if you were to pinpoint one guy, it would be him. And
played 30 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, that's and he went 7-12 from the field. So yeah, Josh Jackson definitely, I think it makes for an option on FanDuel where you have to roster 2 shooting guards. But on DraftKings, I can't really have interest in anyone in Detroit outside of Sadiq Bey right now. If for some reason someone gets ruled out on a back-to-back, that might, if Plumlee gets ruled out, I'll have interest in Isaiah Stewart. He'll jump into one of the better value plays on the slate, but it's tough to have any interest in anyone else outside of Bey for me.
Isaiah Stewart no longer the free play on FanDuel, already up to 5,200. So that has changed a little bit. All right, for the Clippers. No Kawhi, which means it's Paul George season. He is 8,400. And with the guys that are off the floor here, Paul George has an absolutely monstrous usage rate. I projected his usage today for 34%, well north of his normal rates. To me, he is probably the best play on DK today. I'm happy to get to a little bit of Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Ivica Zubac, but Paul George with no Kawhi, that's the play.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Paul George is a phenomenal play, especially in this environment with the guys out for him. There is a chance he could be the highest scoring fantasy player on the slate. That's the upside that he's going to be dealt with. And it's going to be a priority to find a way to get to Paul George today on both sides for me. I know the 9K price tag, you're going to be like, well, Paul George hasn't been priced at 9K for a while, but it's I think that price tag is kind of still too cheap for the amount of usage, the shot attempts he's going to be taking. Now, for some reason, if you want to fade Paul George, I think it's probably a good idea to have at least interest in Reggie Jackson, Morris, or Kennard. I do think they're going to take up the usage if Paul George doesn't get going.
Paul George doesn't get going. This is going to look mighty brutal. Mighty brutal. Trying to see if I have anybody graded out here that we should be touching on from the Clippers, but I don't think
How do you feel about Terrence Mann, someone who also cracked a mid-30s minutes last time? Him and Kennard, how many minutes did Kennard end up playing? 25, and Mann played it up playing more minutes. So maybe Ty Lue rode the hot hand. Mann, who's been pretty solid off the bench all year long. So yeah, I think mixing and matching with both of those guys and seeing what their ownership comes in at. They've been rolling as Kennard as the starter when George has been out. We'll see what happens when Kawhi is out. I don't recall who ends up cracking the lineup. I still think it would be Kennard who would be in the lineup.
So if Rondo ends up out, then obviously I think Terrence Mann becomes a really nice play. If Rondo is in, I think Terrence Mann is still like slightly viable, because if this game breaks correctly, I think that he would also probably play in a blowout. So he might be able to get 3 rotations and close in a blowout. And I think that's the type of guy that you should be interested in taking a shot on in a larger field GPP, because he would get his normal 3 rotations, and then he could just potentially also be out there for the 4th to soak it up. Because I wouldn't expect it to be like, they're not going to play Rondo in the blowout, or at least I wouldn't expect them to. So something to keep an eye on at least. Final game.
Let's do it.
The Miami Heat taking up. Why do I have Jimmy? Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I typed Kendrick Nunn's minutes in the wrong spot. I was like, why in the world do I have Jimmy Butler projected for 51 minutes? Don't think he's going to play that. Yeah, I'm projecting Jimmy Butler to play all of the regulation minutes and some time in overtime. Anyway, Miami at Portland. Miami slight favorites, 222 total. We will start on the Miami side. Lots of stuff up in the air here. Victor Oladipo, as we know, out for the foreseeable future too. Not really sure what's going on there. I mean, we kind of know what's going on, but anything could be up for Victor Oladipo. Probably a good thing for Miami. He's not very good. Tyler Hero, questionable. Dwayne Dedmon, probable. Welcome back to the NBA. Gabe Vincent, probable. I don't have a ton that makes me interested from Miami. Jimmy Butler, as per usual, always viable, but I think there are better ways to spend that money. Bam Adebayo, 8,800 on FanDuel. 8,300 on DraftKings, a little bit more appealing to me. And that's probably it. Like, I'm a little... Goran Dragic over the past month has been not very good. Duncan Robinson, Trevor Ariza, Andre Iguodala, not great fantasy performers anyway. What are you seeing for Miami?
Yeah, it's a great matchup versus Portland. I think there is a pathway for guys like Butler and Adebayo to put up a ceiling performance. I think I'd like taking my chances with Bam, but my only cause of concern is how many minutes is Darian Dedmon going to play and steal those center minutes off of Bam today? I expect him to play a little bit. I don't know how many minutes he's going to play, but I like going to Bam on $8,300 on DraftKings, and I don't mind him on FanDuel either. And Jimmy Butler is kind of organically kind of in play on that FanDuel position because you have to roster two small forwards. And in terms of paying up for small forwards, he's definitely going to be kind of not a priority spend up option, but he's going to be in the range where you have to pick and choose between Middleton and Ingram. I prefer Middleton to obviously save a ton of money off of Butler to Middleton. So Butler's going to be kind of low owned in that small forward spot and could put up a nice performance. So I like taking some chances with Jimmy buckets.
Grand Attraction Inc. says, missed the whole show. Can y'all start over, please? No, but you can. Just drag that bar on the YouTube screen straight over to the left and it'll be like the show just started for you. Fun stuff. Unbelievable. On the Portland side, let's close this bad boy out. Nothing really all that interesting for Portland. This is just going to be their normal rotation. So we've got Dame, 8,900 on FanDuel, 9,500 on DK. CJ is 8,100 and 8K. Cantor coming off the 30-point behemoth, 5,400 on FanDuel, 6,100 on DraftKings. The standout piece here for me, as per usual, Damian Lillard, but 8,900 on FanDuel for Dame is a very surprising price tag.
Yeah, that's cheap for Dame. I know he hasn't been all that fun in terms of upside performances for the last four games, but when he's taking 20 shot attempts, he's one of those guys who can just get hot, and that's cheap for Dame. $8,900 is really cheap. I like taking some chances with Dame. Maybe it's a Dame game. Last night felt like more of a CJ game. I know Dame ended up getting more fantasy points, but CJ took 21 shot attempts, so I think Dame could definitely be a nice option on FanDuel. We're at the roster too. And I expect Nurkic to be back. And maybe that alone is a reason not to play Cannon today after an exceptional performance.
Yeah, I think you can get to a little bit of Cantor for that $5,400 tag on FanDuel. I think he's a bit of a tough sell for $6,100 on DraftKings. I just don't know what that minutes upside is really going to be. And I don't know. I'm hoping that Dame doesn't end up too popular. He's been a guy that I've been like many multiples over the field on as of late. And I want to be able to be there alone when he does hit that pop-off game. I don't want it to happen on the day.
It hasn't happened in a while.
I know. It's not fun. Any final thoughts on Portland and Miami or any other summary thoughts for the entire slate?
No, we're just fingers crossed for Chris Middleton to finally show up for us. It's been some time. Hopefully Middleton can carry us, but it should be a fun 8-game slate. Lots and lots of studs, a lot of good fantasy environments for us to take advantage of. So it should be a ton of fun.
Well, that will do it. 8 games up, 8 games down. The Sunday NBA strategy show is in the books. We've got MLB Live Before Lock coming up relatively soon. Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock coming up later today. We've got the Sunday Masters kicking off. It's going to be a really nice sports day. It's gorgeous here. I'm going to spend some time outside playing some cornhole, grilling some burgers, and just sort of enjoying the rest of my Sunday. Rimpack, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Jordan, behind the virtual glass, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I assume you're probably producing those shows, so you will not be enjoying your Sunday in any way, but I'll enjoy it for you. Thank you guys for being here. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live, and shout out to No House Advantage for being the presenting sponsor of this show. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Watch for the slate starter before you watch the process show. That'll all be before the sun rises. It's going to be great, guys. We'll talk to you later.